Hello again, this is David Hosey from Hosey Consulting and Training. Today we're going to talk over LWRC M6IC, not like the A5 improved version, but the IC as it initially came out. I've had it for 6 years. I put somewhere north of 8,000 rounds, probably pushing 9,000 rounds with it. Used it in all kinds of formats, from training to hunting to self-defense and different kinds of training. And I'm going to go over all those details and what I've learned from it, what I think of its system, what its strengths and weaknesses are. So first, what it is and what makes this different from, it's just another AR. This is a piston AR with a variable gas system, so you can do 2 gas settings on it. And also the M6IC, what that means is over a decade ago, the Army was trying to do an improvement program for the M4 and look at current industry standards. This is well before the XM5 and what's worked out with SIG and everything else. This was something completely different. This is one of the submissions. And while the Army didn't adopt anything from it, we're happy with the M4 as it is. We get this as a somewhat improved M4. I thought it's got maybe a touch more weight, and I'll talk over improvements and disapproval and just weaknesses it has from a regular AR. And also what I have modified it, because this is not as it came from the factory, and that what my experience is with it as it is and how it's changed over time, and what parts fell off first, what parts did I have to replace for wear and tear, and what has worked really well for it. So I'm gonna go over tip to butt on this, Garand thumb, Navy, insert your jokes here, whatever. First, I have a K-can on this. It is an AAC Mini 4, really small can. I think it's even smaller than a Surefire can, and I like it a lot. Its attachment method is a little outdated, but it works well. I have a 3-prong flash hider on this. That's the attachment method from AAC again. Originally, there was a 4-prong on this, couple doubles as a tuning fork. This is a 14.7-inch barrel, but it had a permanently attached 4-prong on this that made it 16.1 inch. I had a gunsmith remove it, put this back in silver soldered, and it's hard to see in here somewhere, but put a pin in to make that 16 inches. So going back there, we have this barrel, and it looks like kind of like a unicorn horn. This is a little heavier barrel than what you would find on an M4 profile. In fact, it's more continuous. But to lighten it up, they put this spiral fluting in it, which makes a real distinctive link, and it's like, I don't know if you're unicorn horns or something like that. But what it does do is allows it to cool very well and still give me that rigidity and really heavy weight that could take a lot of abuse. And with the suppressor, more heat gets put back into this barrel, and I've noticed no degradation over time from that extra heat, especially when it, 500-600 round in a day shooting schedules suppressed. No real problem even in hot weather. Another note on the barrel: this is hammer forged, chrome lined, and some specialized steel. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now, but better than machine gun barrel and really nicely done. Like almost everything in this gun, from tip to butt, it was done in-house by LWRC. There's only a couple Magpul parts on this, maybe a couple small springs that are not them, which also maybe adds to the cost of this. Moving on back, we have the piston system. I can show that right now. These screws take it off. It has a top plate that comes off, which has some pluses and minuses. The plus is you can get easy access to the full thing and see it better than you can like an HK or a Barrett piston AR system. Minus is this may come off. It should be returned to 0. I've done this multiple times. Still hit my targets. I took up 100-yard range with the laser, but it always makes me nervous. This works. The rod in here, it's short stroke, so the rod taps the bolt and goes it on back rather than a direct impingement system. This is how it differs from a conventional AR. with a direct impingement system. The gas will go completely back in here. It gets more dirty, whether it's a piston system or not in there, it gets into somatics. But with the other thing with this is also I have the gas regulator here, which was one of the first parts to come off. We'll talk about that later and some of its strengths and weaknesses. The strength of this is not a very gassy gun for me when in the suppressed setting. In the non-suppressed setting, it gets a bit gassy. I have a non-adjustable LWRC M6IC here. It's actually an SPR, so it doesn't have the unicorn barrel. And it, even with a larger 30 caliber can, full size, is much more gassy than I am with this little mini can, and it's low volume. So the gas system does really well for both mitigating that gas in my face and making it a clean system. And maybe one of the reasons I bought this was that Army standard of wanting to over clean things is my gun would not get as dirty suppressed as quickly. And I could clean it with a paper towel with a little bit of CLP on it. Moving on back, the handguard here, it's all metal, it's not a quad rail. It's kind of a pre-M-lock system. And instead of an M-lock, it has, you can see close up here, these got these screws that attach on. These are rail panels here, a little bit of pick rail here, pick rail here, pick rail, and a quick attach point for the sling. That's proprietary, and it's a proprietary parts getting for it. I think in their new systems, they're beginning to put systems out with M-locks for their current production, at least with their DI guns. It's never really been a problem for me. I guess with M-lock for my attachments here, I'd have like a fraction of a less weight if I didn't have to put on pick rail and can attach straight M-lock, and I could use more of a, for my Surefire here, use the Pro system and their M-lock attachment, and that might lose me between the two systems an ounce or two up front. And that could be useful, but I kind of learned to live with it. I'm an early war on tear vet, early to mid war on tear, and we just got used to those quad rails and heavy weight, so this is actually a little lighter for all the crap I have on it. Okay, with the sights here, I have changed these out completely. Let me show you on this 6.8 from LWRC, the sights. These are awesome sights, pop-up sights, very well constructed, have low glare on them. It has this thing where you can flip it back and forth with a large or small aperture. Super solid. Came with the best adjustment tool I've ever seen for AR sights. Can't use them on what I wanted to do. So what I wanted to do was a laser, and it was too fat and it caused problems. This still, I get a little bit of glare from my illuminator and laser here. I really need to get one of those dedicated aftermarket ones that have come out, but 6 years ago they weren't out. This was the best I could do. On the back here, I've got a Miltech rear sight. I use these on several tours, and dialing in the range here, I found the drop, especially out of an M4 size barrel, is really good and allows me a lot of accuracy just to work that drop out. So, and I'm just familiar with them, so I kept that. Moving further on back from what LWRC offers is ambidextrous controls. Like say bolt release, bolt catch right there. Over here, ambidextrous safety magazine release, so it works on both sides. Very well designed, ambidextrous, but not super long and obnoxious. So it gets into digs into your hand, your trigger finger when it's down. Ambidextrous safety, charging handle, excellent. Very ambidextrous, so I can work from both sides. I can pull. It's got a lot of extra structural strength. You know, the base ones, the pins can just, if I work it like this, I can wear that out and everything, or extra wear points. Never have seen that with it. Again, another in-house by them. It's not proprietary. You can put other charging handles on there if you want to. As we go further on back, quick detach sling attachments. One here and here. There's none on the front rail like you might find on a SIG MCX there. They do come in the box with a piece of pick rail along with a sling detachment, quick attach points. So you can put it where you want it. They are They only have limited rotation on them, which I really like, so your sling doesn't, you know, go spinning all over the place, unless you're into that thing. Next, further on back, buttstock. This is their compact model, again, proprietary to them. The buffer tube, the spring, everything else. You can use conventional stuff on this, but this one is a fraction of an inch shorter. It also has a very low print right here. It's got a little bit of negative pitch, so I can get it in the toe of my pocket and move down and up, and this grabs it here really well. Really similar to a lot of the Bravo company offerings, but this may have come beforehand, or either way, cross-pollination inspired. Little slide pitch over normal M4 stock here, not as bad as, say, the Sop Mod or some of the Bravo company ones. There's no little secret compartments to put, you know, spare batteries, your Slim Jims or whatever. And it gives me a really good cheek to stock weld with a minimal amount of imprint back here. And also narrow and still tacky to work with body armor or whatever plate carrier chest rigs you've got going. Pistol grip, this is Magpul, but a slightly tacky one, and works fairly well. It doesn't hold paint well, as you can see, but works very well in wet. Sweating your wet or gloves and it's wet, works extremely well. This has been replaced in current manufacturer by a proprietary, or not proprietary, they just make their own, but that's normal AR from LWRC. And then the bottom of the trigger guard here is also a Magpul part, and it gives you plenty of room for your fingers. If you watched my other videos, you know I'm really big about wearing gloves with my equipment and use that. So I'm quite happy with that. Changes on the back here. The only thing I have done is I've replaced the trigger with a Geisley 2-stage trigger, an SSA. I did that a couple thousand rounds in. It gives me a little bit more speed and a little bit more precision when I want it. The mil-spec trigger was a little bit beyond that, nicely coated with that nickel boron coating that they have on the bolt. This one has been a little bit discolored by thousands of rounds of suppressor use. Let me pull out this one out of the 6.8 real quick to show you what it looks like. Makes it very easy to clean. Mine's gotten dirty, but suppressed use. And you'll notice that the gas key is not a gas key. It's a kind of a strike plate for that short start piston. It's entirely one piece. There's no keyed materials or anything else like that. It's also back here to go better easier into the buffer tube and deal with some piston issues like bolt carrier tilt. That doesn't exist really in the system, and it goes very smoothly back with the whole system. And it uses a little bit of proprietary springs. You can use regular springs and buffers in here. I just found theirs work really well, especially with the short suppressor. The other add-ons I've done is this PEC 15 civilian clone. Solid IR laser, worked really well. And I put an aim point on here, T2 with a LaRue mount. It's quick detach, but I hardly ever detach it because I'm so picky about, especially about my red dot zeros. Absolute co-witness, which it works just beautifully for, which gives me from good long range work and cheek to stock weld. This works well at night. This does not work well at night for passive aiming. In fact, it really sucks at it. For daylight work, this works really well. My intent with this gun is a close-in gun that I can use for self-defense, varmint hunting, and training, and also be able to flex to mid-range work. For close-in, with under white light or daytime, this works well. This works well for close in and mid-range for the night work. And with this backup sight, I can flex to the mid-range work. Okay, 1.92, 2 targets, 2 rounds, while moving at least 2 steps, and I'm sitting here around 10 yards. So this is what this really works in, fast and close. We'll do a couple more drills. Oh, quick thing about my appearance here. I've been filming for a bit over an hour. Did the long range stuff where I was laying down in the dust. It's somewhere around 97 degrees. It'll be 100 probably by the time I get done filming. So this is pushing myself and my equipment in the heat, but you learn things about yourself and your equipment doing that. A quick aside, when I talk about these ambidextrous controls and you sometimes need a bit more pressure, PMags, I noticed it on particular. So I put, and nope, it's not quite in there. And it'll drop on out. GI mags on a closed bolt, not quite. I got to give them an extra click. Thought there'll be a little easier. Lancer, this one's just got an extended mag for 36 rounds. Still a little bit, I have to do it, I have to give it that extra whack. That is an issue. Okay. What do we get for time? 3.88. I think that's pretty good, moving 4 steps, 4 rounds to the body, and then stopping in 4 rounds to the head. That's what this can really work good on. Some pluses on standard AR. You've got that inline recoil, and I'm not eating gas from the shorty suppressor because of the suppressor setting. And getting a little warm, but not too bad. Minuses. The piston system means I don't have to worry about the gas as much. I'm getting a touch more recoil than I would say from a mid-length straight gas system. So that piston, it gives maybe just a little bit more than say a carbine Impulse or M4, which this is really the exact same size of. That's kind of a downside on it. If you're good behind the gun, it's not too much. If you're doing split scores times, and I know I just timed this, and trying to get that one extra 1/100th of a second off things, this may slow you down a bit. Other thing here, the Geisley trigger on this thing, improvement, really good improvement, makes it super smooth. I just think about shooting, I don't have to think about trigger manipulation. Switching over to left-handed here, working all controls left-handed. So back to the right-handed here. Back again to left. I'll step out a little bit so you can see I'm using the controls completely left-handed here, but so what I'm doing here is 40-yard shots, working cover. Notice I'm not hanging on or going against the cover or pushing my muzzle beyond the cover. This allows me a lot more maneuverability, and not hugging cover is a big thing. It allows you to maneuver if somebody gets close in on you. If I'm really uptight against this, I'm losing all that visibility over there. If I'm back here behind cover further, I have a lot more field of view of what I can see. Why don't we go right now and we'll talk about, we'll show how this works at 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 yards and what I can get out of this. So 300 yards, and this is using the Mark 318 ammunition in here, is quite easy just with the red dot. It's normally about a 2.5 MOA, but I'm shooting them about 325 here, so maybe it's a 7-inch group, so that's easy to hold on steel and well within its capabilities. And it's a simple, comfortable gun to shoot. We'll go back a little bit further here, see what it'll do. Okay, this is a little back past 400 yards here. I am cheating with a little triad sandbag on the base here, but this is a field position and it's a field rifle. It works really well compared to some things like you see other SBRs like the PS90 that I'll do at this range, or that G3K. This, because it's so flat shooting and the target and the aim point T2 is precise enough that it's not a really difficult shot. I just have to hold just half a target form over any type silhouette that I'm shooting for the steel, and I'm still dropping it right into the chest with minimal effort.
That's a hit. I filmed the first hit though.
You just did?
Mm-hmm. It's rolling.
Are you still rolling?
Yeah.
Great. So anyway, that's 500 yards. I'm using the old Miltech backup irons. Give me an idea of a range, even thought I maybe with the red dot. Just dialed into 500 yards, which is where we're at. Now, this gun is mostly a close-in gun that can flex to medium range, and in a pinch do long range like this, 500. A laser rangefinder or a pair of binoculars is really what you want at this distance to do PID, because I know my target's there, whether it was armed, good or bad. I'd have to do something to PID here, unless you're doing completely Mad Max. But the gun is quite capable of it. This was me popping down and doing the first shots, and the sight's already all dialed in. And again, it's not a sub MOA gun. It's not even a 1 MOA gun. But 500 yards, easy with it. So what does a couple MOA look like in real life when you do 300, 400, 500 yards? Between here and here is the shots I took at 300, 400, and 500 yards. Actually, about 420 on one. Those were a couple warm-up hits at 300. A couple MOA maybe flex, but still both hits on it. So don't get, sub MOA is awesome. I have sub MOA guns and precision setups and everything. Don't get wrapped around them. You can do good work with a couple MOA gun. So we've come back from that long range shooting. You can see this absolute co-witness works really well for me at distance. Beautifully so. It works fairly well. I don't have a quite heads up, but fairly good. I'm used to it. During daytime close in and mid-range work. Again, night work, not so good. If I would improve anything about this for night work, it would be this front sight for something that works with the PEC 15 even better, and get this a little bit higher so I could do passive aiming. For passive aiming for this, I got to push it out like this, and not even get a good cheek to stock weld. That's not very good. Comparatively to, and this is kind of a teaser for the next review, this Sig Virtus here with this EOTech, not even completely raised, is awesome sauce for passive work and night work all in general. And this is more of a specialist close in and specifically night work gun. This falls under more general purpose use. At some point, I'm going to get something on here because I still want to get cheek to stock weld. I'm going to have to split the difference between some of the Unity riser, really high stuff, and maybe the upper, how tall LaRue makes something or somebody similar. But that works really well. The night vision here, we'll talk over what that can do real quick. And still with a couple minutes of angle, you can still do really good work. And the other thing on here for what I've added on, I have a Surefire Vampire light. Most of the time what I will do is I'll select this, so I just have the infrared illuminator and laser, and that works for good for 50 yards, but I'm trying to stretch this, and that also allows me to do the white light and vary back and forth, and actually mix the two together in a shooting drill or in a confrontation with somebody. For varmint hunting, that does not work as well, and just a couple clicks, and I'll have it over to infrared, and that allows me to push out to 200 yards pretty easily with this system and make up for the lack of IR illuminator on here. But it's not a good general purpose fighting thing. Most of my social work would be closer in and have the white light otherwise. We'll show that really quick in a video. Here's some. the old school chicken wing. And so that pause in between the shooting is me dealing from smoke from the suppressor and the humidity tonight. A good part of night shooting, both active infrared and active white light, is dealing with that humidity and smoke in certain situations, especially with no real wind tonight. So what has this rifle done for me, and what do I got out of 6 years and 8,000 rounds, and how have those been 8,000 rounds done? And what this rifle does for me is this is a home defense and kind of farm defense. Extended family farm around here is about a square mile. And we'll have some people come on now and then. We'll talk about that. Also, I have a lot of problems with not the two-legged varmints, but four-legged varmints. More of those with coyotes. This has killed a pile of coyotes. Most of those have been killed with 55 grain Hornady. Some have been killed with Mark 318 dual purpose round. Works really well. 2 minute of angle will work out to, on those coyotes, to a couple hundred yards. Thought most of those are sub 100 yard kills. And mostly at night, mostly with the IR laser. And the suppressor has done really good for me, and not having my neighbors wake up with all the gunfire going on as I make war on the coyotes here. But coyotes in our area, aside from livestock, we have chickens, some other livestock. Some of my neighbors have lost several $1,000s in livestock to it, had cats killed. The coyotes in our area will even kill mid-sized 50-pound dogs in a pack. So making war on them with this is kind of a good public service. Next things I've done with this is a training rifle, and both my own improved training. I took a Larry Vickers rifle course with this, with a couple thousand rounds. Real quick on that, we had a problem show up. I went in mostly with that course with PMags, and they look like they're inserting just fine here, but this double ambidextrous system puts more spring pressure on a fully loaded magazine. It will sometimes false seat or then drop out when you first do it to normal speed pressure. A Lancer is similar. Aluminum is about normal pressure to hit and release. I can still use the Lancer and the PMags just fine. I have to just slap it in harder to do that. I discovered that with Larry Vickers. And Larry's a little funny. He gets a little peeved off when you drop magazines on his range. But we worked through that just fine, and I learned something about the system, and I just have to slap things in a little bit more. And that might be, while the ambidextrous system is a good strength, there's a weakness to it because it puts more spring pressure you have to overcome to insert a full magazine on a closed bolt. And yes, if you're curious, those were downloaded to 28, but I still had a little bit of problem with it. Other things is this training as a general training rifle, me training other people. The ambidextrous features on this work really well. I can do C-clamp from either side and work my controls. I can work my laser here, and I can work the light from both sides. You'll notice I don't have tape switches in here. I was a little paranoid at first that this gas system might erode tape switches a bit more. That, and during deployments where I really push things really hard, I've worn my tape switches through several times, and I look at them as kind of a disposable item. I have them on some other rifles, you'll see later. But if I can get away with not having tape switches, I try and get away with it. Again, C-clamp, I can do this. That has me right on the button there. I do have the switch grip for a white light, but I want my white light to be extremely delivered. Another reason why I don't like tape switches, and want to be very disciplined when I use the white light. So for the hunting And also the extended farm defense is why I have this camouflage on this. This is the third coating on this. It wears off. In the past I've done Duracoat and other camouflage things and coatings. The problem I discovered was it would show up under infrared with night vision better and a little bit into the near ultraviolet with animals to a degree. This is good neutral in both and provides camouflage across spectrums really well. I'm not saying it's thermally resistant, but for under night vision, it's not going to shine through like you'll get just anodization of aluminum or some of the commercial gun coatings. The other thing of camouflaging this against people. So it's been a few years, and with this, I've ran into several trespassers. Actually, in the past couple of years, it's been several trespassers. Most was about 3 years ago. It was a half dozen of them. They were doing meth. Warm time of the year, running a fire right next to a field that could have caught on fire near farm machinery. If you know anything about Willamette Valley in the past couple of years, we're not really hip on fire in our property. And there's been some arsons and other things going on. I didn't expect that there'd be 6 of them, but that's what they were. This was a really good confidence maker for me to have along with me when I confronted them along with body armor and night vision. But I had real confidence in this, that it would do what I needed to do and be a good force multiplier. The white light and infrared combination at close range worked really well. I was able to daze them and move on. If you're a local law enforcement, I love you guys. Your response time, unfortunately, because I'm in Edge County, is like a half hour. And I just went out and had a nice talk with them before they set a field on fire or screwed up any more machinery than they already were. But this has worked really well with this. So lots of positives to this. I love this gun. I don't have to worry about the battery with the Aimpoint T2, unlike with the EOTech where I got to turn it back on. This is just a grab and go gun system for me. And it really hasn't failed me. I've had a battery let down where this is vampiric battery when I didn't have it off. On the gun itself, parts that failed. The gas regulator here gets lots of pressure, especially with this short system. Most of the ammunition I've put through this has been XM193 clones, Federal, whole lot of Wolf Gold. Some M855, some Mark 318, which is my current fighting load in this, and I've killed a few coyotes with great dual purpose round. I've switched over that from 55 grain Hornady because post 2020, more encounters with cars, and I wanted something, a good dual purpose round that'd be good for both soft flesh and being barrier blind to a degree. Somewhere in there, I had a buddy come over and had some, I think it was South Korean surplus. It was a little dirty. We ran a lot of that. Next day, I was teaching with this and demonstrating, and I loaned this out to a client to use it ambidextrously, and the gas regulator flew right off, hit this suppressor, and bounced off his forehead. He was a really good sport about it. In fact, he's come back and trained with me several times. But that was a little alarming. There is a roll pin holding this in, and it rotates back and forth on it. I contacted LWRC. They were able to send me a spare part within a week. I kept this, and they sent me 2 roll pins, so I have a complete replacement for it again. That was north of the 700,000 rounds, most of it suppressed with a short suppressor. So that is a weakness in the system. On the plus side, I didn't lose the complete gas piston here. It just changed its regulation, and it was stuck in the suppressor setting. It completely worked, and I was able to run it and shoot it without that. Other things, my ejection pattern started getting a little on, and I replaced the ejector on it. And when I did that, I thought it was time to replace the buffer spring. There was 2 buffer springs from LWRC, a normal and a strong one. The normal I replaced it with seemed a little bit weak on seating a first round sometimes. If I was just on the edge of putting back, I had replaced it with an extra strong one. It worked otherwise. So with this setup and the shorter buffer spring, you need a shorter buffer tube. You need a stronger buffer spring. And if I could get spare parts on that gas system from LWRC, I would do that. That would be the weaknesses on this. Strengths on this, it's only 2 MOA, and you think for north of $2,000, I want 1 MOA. I can do pretty good with 2 MOA. It's really reliable. Even when parts of the gas regulator come off, it's really reliable. It also just feels quality. Some of my clients will show up with $1,000 in their complete gun, optics, light, sling. Oh, Victor's Tactical here. You can see how much wear I put into the thing. Really like it for a good 2-point sling. I'll have other clients that come up for teaching and they've got a bit more money with it and kind of expect or looking at buying a more expensive gun. So this is kind of a showcase of suppressor, IR laser, Aimpoint T2, and a really good quality gun and that good feel of it. They can use it as a rental gun and get that idea of what if they want to spend a fair amount of money on it. This is a fair amount of money. This as configured is a bit north of $5,000 when you include the stamp cost. So for me, it's been really a good gun. It'll probably maintain my go-to gun. I have some more niche guns, like say this. Love this thing. We'll do a quick review soon. Or other ARs, and you see me with the PS90 SBR or that G3K or the MP5s. All those are really good guns, and I like them a lot, and they get some rotational use, or that 50 Beowulf. This is a good general purpose gun. It's not, for example, for deer hunting, but for self-defense, dealing with ranches, if I got to shoot the vehicles a little bit, and shooting coyotes, and also teaching. And it's an AR world in what we live in. I like the alternative ARs, even if they're close to ARs like this MCX, and I love me some HKs and FNs and other things, and those old M14s, but it's an AR world, and that's why most of my clients come to me, most of my teaching. It's what I have to get my repetitions in. It's also, I'm an Army veteran. The AR, the M16, M4 is where I've got a huge amount of muscle memory in. So this is my current go-to gun. Will probably stay so in the future. I will try other long guns out, and they will get rotations and thousands of rounds put into them. But if you show up to take a general carbine class from me, this is probably what you'll see me doing. Or I might be using something else, and you can rent this if you want. If you have any questions about this or my experience with it, let me know. It likes generally heavier ammo. Thought the Hornady 55 Granite was okay with on 2 MOA. I have not been able to crack below 2 MOA. That's maybe a disappointment on this. That the part popping off and hitting one of my clients in the forehead when it bounced back, that was a disappointment. Aside from that, it keeps on working. I could probably still be shooting without the parts I replaced on it. It was just beginning to show wear, and it should have an adjustable gas system. And I'll probably change out that sight height, but I'll probably still keep the T2 on it. It's a solid system. I highly recommend this if you're interested in buying this. Not only it's a cleaner system to clean, it works really well suppressed, and the ambi features allow some different manual of arms slightly, or if you're using switching to ambi use back and forth, it is completely usable. It's a really nice system, or if you're a lefty. I think I've said enough words good about it. Thank you for your time and consideration. Good day.